Hi there, welcome to English Lessons with In Lingua Vancouver. My name is Troy, nice to see you again. Today I have a special lesson. We're going to learn 3 super common, useful, and easy idioms. Do you know what an idiom it is? Probably you do. An idiom is like an expression. It's not really grammar, it's more like an expression. But native speakers love idioms. You have to use them and you have to catch them if you want to be really like a native speaker. But the good news is, these are easy, right? Okay. So the 3 idioms today are, take a look. Have you ever heard of these before? You might have heard them because, as I said, they're super common. Everybody loves them. So the first one is, the reality of the situation is that blah, 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 blah. You will say a sentence with a subject, verb, and object. The second one, similar. The bottom line is that blah, 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 blah. The bottom line. What does that mean? Well, look at this. Imagine a paper, and there's many lines, and usually the bottom line is most important, you know? So this is a metaphor. It's not really about papers. Forget the papers, you know, it's just a kind of metaphor. Okay, so the reality of the situation is that blah, 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 blah. The bottom line is that blah, 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 blah. And number 3, at the end of the day, blah, 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 blah. See this intonation? At the end of the day, blah, 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 blah. Now, this is another metaphor. Look, it's the end of the day. It's not really about the end of the day. Forget it. It's just a metaphor. Okay? So these three idioms are quite easy, but just because they're easy doesn't mean they're not powerful. They're really powerful. And they're just everywhere. People like, you know, popular expressions. So if you learn these 3, you can jump your English level easily. Just you need to practice and you need to use them. And you need to catch them. Say it, write it, catch it. Okay, so let's take a look. These are all very similar in meaning. They mean the most important point, or in conclusion, you know, the most important point. The reality of the situation is that. Let me give you a fast example. The most important point is that grammar is not enough. The reality of the situation is that you need to develop your fluency in your speaking. So, here are some examples. Pattern 1, 2, 3, or idiom, and then idiom 1, 2, 3. Okay? So first, I'd like you to read them just by yourself. Can you see these? Maybe zoom. Try this one. Okay, listen. I'll say it and you say it, okay? The reality of the situation is that some English is easy, common, and useful. Try it. Good job. Number 2 pattern. The bottom line is that you need to catch English patterns every day. Try it. The bottom line. Okay. At the end of the day, your thinking and speaking in English will improve. Try it. Okay. This one. The reality of the situation is that you can use this easily. Try it. Another one. The bottom line is that everybody uses the same English expressions all around the world. And at the end of the day, you're joining the Global English Club. Try it. So you can see, using these simple patterns, you can say some pretty interesting things. Now, here's another thing we can do. This question is good. Is it true? It's kind of like a philosophy question. Is that really true? So let's check these again. Is it true? Try it. Is it true? Okay, so the reality of the situation is that some English is easy, common, and useful. Is it true? It is. That's why I ask you to catch a lot. When you start listening, you will see that many people are using some kind of common English. It is common. It's very useful. And this, in particular, this is pretty easy. Okay, so this one is true. The bottom line is that you need to catch English patterns every day. This is awesome. Many students have studied English for a long time, but they never experienced just catching patterns. And as soon as they start, it's almost like magic. Their ears open. I have had so many students in Lingua that have studied English for 5 years, 10 years, but they never tried catching patterns. That's why TV is important and movies. But after you start to develop this habit, you're always learning English. It's a very interesting situation. So the bottom line is that you need to catch English patterns every day. Yeah, you will improve. At the end of the day, your thinking and speaking in English will improve. Is it true? If you learn this, your thinking and speaking in English will improve. Yeah, grammar patterns are not only speaking, they're actually thinking. You know, thinking comes before speaking. So yes, your thinking will expand and your speaking will be much better. For example, if you have a job interview in English and you use some of these, you will have an impact on your listener. You know, just for some reason they will prefer your English or they will like your English, right? Because everybody uses the same structures. The reality of the situation is that you can use this easily. Is it true you can use this easily? Yep, it's pretty simple. Just because it's simple doesn't mean it's not great. And the bottom line is that everybody uses the same English expressions around the world. It's true and it's quite interesting. Before teaching English, I didn't know that. I didn't know that everybody is kind of using the same collection, but it's true. So, of course, learning the most common English is going to really help you, you know? At the end of the day, you're joining the Global English Club. Well, yeah, there's a club. If everybody uses the same language in England, America, Canada, Australia, that's kind of a big club. Basically, English is a big language, as I said before, but you can learn some key language, sort of a sub-language, okay? All right, so it's nice to think sometimes a little bit, think a little bit more deeply. Next, I have some practice subjects for you. Practice subjects. So, what can you say? Try it. First you. Look at these topics. Can you talk about robots using number 1? The reality of the situation is that. And what can you say about robots? I'm sure you can say something. Try it. Did you say something? After I will give you an example. Speaking practice. English speaking practice. Number 2. What can you say? Try that. The bottom line is that. Okay. Studying grammar books. What do you think about studying grammar books? Use number 3. Did you say something? And look at this. English, opportunities, communicating with others. Using number 1. The reality of the situation is that. A little trickier, but you can make something. Here's another one. Video games. What can you say about video games? With number 2. The bottom line is that blah, 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 blah. What do you think about games? And finally, environmental problems, using number 3, environmental problems. At the end of the day, so when it comes to these patterns, you need to use them. You have to use them. You cannot just read them in a book. You know, patterns are for using, not really just for reading or studying or something, okay? Now, I'll try. Maybe when I make sentences, they will be a little similar to your sentences. Let's try. Robots. The reality of the situation is that robots are going to become a bigger part of human life, more and more over the years. Do you think so? The reality of the situation is that robots are going to take human jobs. Do you think so? 2, speaking practice. The bottom line is that English speaking practice is essential. And that's why many people study English in another country and they can't speak because they didn't get that speaking practice. So in a lingua, of course, we're always speaking and having discussions. We use patterns, but of course we have topics and big discussions. Studying grammar books. 3. Well, at the end of the day, studying grammar books is only the beginning. It's not really good enough. It's the first step, but it's not the second step. The grammar needs to come off the page. We use grammar in real life. So at the end of the day, studying grammar books is just the beginning, but speaking is number 1. Number 1, let's hear. The reality of the situation is that English can give you many opportunities in terms of communicating with others. See, nice combinations. Number 1. The reality of the situation is that English can give you many opportunities in terms of communicating with others, right? Like both in your job, but also in terms of traveling, for example. Video games. 2. The bottom line is that video games are here to stay. I don't think they're going away. Another one. The bottom line is that video games are going to be a bigger part of human life, and not only about games, actually. In fact, I've heard that games are going to be used in every field, used by the government, used by the army, all kinds of applications, right? So they have a bright future. Environmental problems. At the end of the day, environmental problems are going to impact our life. It's going to change our lives. For example, if the oceans rise, then of course people living near the oceans are going to have to relocate, for example. Or maybe people will unfortunately fight about resources, like fight about environmental issues or fight about water, for example. So you can see, you take some topics, you take these, you practice, your English will improve. So use these topics or any topics, just juggle and practice and make it part of you, and then your English will just improve. Okay, next. So my advice, it's always the same advice. Say it, with feeling. Say it, write it. Writing examples is really useful and important. And catch it. Catch it in the news. So maybe you're watching the news on TV, and you will hear, the bottom line is that, the reality of the situation at the end of the day. Listening is so good for you. The more you listen, the more you feel it. The more you feel it, the more you use it. The more you use it, the more you're a native speaker. Right? Catch these things in the news or articles. Keep your eyes open in newspapers. Documentaries, of course, TED.com, filled with this kind of thing, or just anywhere and everywhere, right? Because common is common. Now, in terms of speaking or saying it, wherever you are around the world, in your country, you need English buddies. You need English friends. Do you have some friends in your city who are interested in English or who are good at speaking? Then you need to get together and share materials. It's much better. Speaking is essential, right? So make sure you are practicing with somebody. Now, finally, can you use these with my previous lesson in terms of, or when it comes to? You can make combinations. Combinations are fun and sometimes quite useful. So let's see. I can say in terms of blah, 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 1. Or I can say in terms of blah, 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 2. Or when it comes to. Let's try it. I will try some combinations. So in terms of Indian curry, the reality of the situation is that curry powder is not actually curry. In fact, in India, they use different kinds of spices to make an authentic curry. So the reality of the situation is that curry powder is not authentic curry at all, really, for example. Or the bottom line. In terms of Indian curry, the bottom line is that it's good to study how to make it correctly using YouTube. or change topic. In terms of learning English, at the end of the day, you can learn quickly and easily. It just depends how you study and if you practice speaking a lot. So you can see this is kind of combination in terms of blah, 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 blah sentence. Or we can change it. We can have this one first, then when it comes to in terms of, then another thing. I'll try. The reality of the situation is that when it comes to hockey, Canada is a pretty good country. Canada's a hockey country, right? We have the Vancouver Canucks. Another one. The bottom line is that when it comes to soccer or football, maybe Canada's not the best, you know? Canada's not playing in the World Cup, at least not the men's team, but maybe in the future they will. At the end of the day, when it comes to grammar, you need to use it and catch it, not just study it like some abstract thing, you know? So it's possible to put these things together. You don't have to, but people do. Basically, we are teaching you all kinds of nice patterns, and you can start to juggle them and put them together in combinations, almost like a boxer or like juggling. And so that's how people really talk. Native speakers just mix and juggle these things in the context of natural discussions. So join the English Club. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for listening again. And you can make any comments that you want or examples, and please subscribe to our channel. Thanks again.